Alright, hello everybody, I'm 7th Ace. I'm going to be running the StarCraft Brood War Zerg campaign. Joining me for commentary today is the one and only GiantGrantGames.
Hello.
And the one and only Ectar.
Hello there.
Alright. StarCraft 1, as known from the professional esports scene, is a very difficult game with a practically infinite skill ceiling, so I will be taking off commentary so I can attempt to give you the best gameplay possible and leave you in the very capable hands of our commentators. So with that, we'll do 3, 2, 1, get started.
All right, so Ace is starting with Vile Disruption, which is a fairly simple mission in theory, but very complicated in execution. There are 6 different hives that he has to bring his forces to and rescue. The way he's going to be doing that is running his forces straight past most of the enemies, triggering all the various little combat events that are associated with them, and taking multiple hives at the same time.
During a casual playthrough of this, every time you collect a hive, you get some more forces to actually replenish your army, but we just kind of run past most of the enemies and get all of the hives before the enemy forces have time to take them out.
Exactly. It is a pretty precarious dance because he only has these very low durability Zerglings, and he has to be able to navigate them through 1998 pathing to get to all of the hives. If this one final Zergling dies, it's dead. But if he gets it down to this hive right over here without it falling, he's going to be in good shape. That is the 5th out of 6 hives, and now all he has to do is bring it to this one final hive, and he's going to get a huge slew of reinforcements that should help him win the game.
You can see on the minimap on the left-hand side, the 9 o'clock hive is actually pretty significantly under threat, so we have to be very quick about killing all the forces on this big island, or else you can actually still lose the level at this point. But it's a speed run. Ace is quick enough that shouldn't be an issue, but it could be sometimes.
Yeah, StarCraft 1 is a moderately consistent game, and you never are entirely sure how the AI is going to act. It does look like he's going to be good, and you have to win, though. If any of the hives die, he does get eliminated.
And here we're seeing some of the issues with, as Grant mentioned, 1998 technology. The trigger timing is pretty inconsistent sometimes, so even if you bring a unit to the location it needs to be, it can take up to 1.5 seconds for the game to actually register that happened.
That one specifically, real quick to chime in while we're in a cutscene, is horrifically inconsistent because we go through it so fast. There are a bunch of different switches and triggers that have to be met, and I believe that sometimes some of them get met, and sometimes they don't, based on how long you're in the trigger zone, and it makes it very weird where the victory can take like 20 seconds before it actually recognizes it, and saving and loading can help with that.
This is the first of several in-game cutscenes that we have here, so all of these units are given orders to attack, and then it plays out in the engine. It's not visual. These are units actually doing things.
All right, at the beginning of the mission, Ace is given an SCV with a psi emitter. He can bring these to various groups of Zerg around the map, and he will gain control of them. Normally, you're supposed to use them to defend as you build up a base, but Ace is just going to dive the final objective with what he gets and try to make it work.
Yes, we saw these red Hydralisks in the previous mission. They're called Hunter Killers, and they're absolute bosses. They have twice the hit points, twice the armor, and twice the damage output of a regular Hydralisk. And the red Zerglings are called Devouring ones. These hero units are what's going to allow us to just take the final objective without actually doing any of the macro mechanics that the game wants us to at this point.
Well, let's be honest. It's not these hero units that are going to do it. There's one extra hero unit that's going to be a little bit more important.
Yeah, I mean, he's good, but the Hunter Killers are the ones that actually deal the damage. We saw Ace bring a single Zergling out. That's just to make sure that this tank shot only hits onto one unit so you don't get too much damage on the rest of your army as we go over and pick up the last Hunter Killers we're going to get for this level. And now we're going to take one poor irregular Zergling and use him once again as bait for our final hero unit.
Yeah, that hero unit is going to be the big bad red boy, the Prosk. Please don't die, Ace. The Tarask. The Tarask is basically immortal, and he's going to serve as the siege breaker in order to get inside of the enemy base and target down the side disruptor main objective.
It's also Tarask with an O, so OGL,
no.
please don't sue us.
So the attack into this is pretty difficult. There is a very tight choke point. Once again, 1998 pathing means that it can be kind of inconsistent to get in there. He's going to try to assassinate these high damage tanks and take as little damage on his army as he can. Once the tanks are gone, he can escort his force to that final objective with the Tarask taking all the hits.
Similarly to the Hunter Killers, the Tarask has a lot of extra armor as well, so we want it taking the primary shots here, and we're going to do as much damage as we can with our Hunter Killers. He's actually spam clicking because there's a random delay between attacks, and spam clicking makes the next attack come out as early as possible, so we should be able to get this final building down, and that'll be the end of the mission.
It's going to be so close, barely taking it down. He lost a lot of forces there, but he had enough, just slightly enough. Because, you know, the Tarask is amazing. You say those Hunter Killers, but I don't know, man. Only the Tarask survived.
We all have our favorites.
We do. I like the big puppy.
This mission is the Kelmorian Combine. This is the first kind of macro mission. This is the first mission where we do have to build a base to win. But the objective is not, like in a lot of StarCraft missions, to destroy all the buildings or to just acquire an objective. It's actually just to mine a ton of minerals. So we want to build as little as we can get away with without losing anything and get that up as quickly as possible.
Exactly. Ace has to get up to 10,000 minerals, which is a huge amount. And unfortunately, as Ectar said, the way that you want to do it is by doing as the least amount possible, which is not very exciting, but here we are.
The way that we kind of game the system on this mission is that there's attack waves that come periodically over time, and then there's other ones that come by when you get up to certain mineral counts. So he's going to be spending a lot of his minerals on expansions and drones, which are going to allow him to gather more minerals, up until he's satisfied with his drone count, and then try to go from below 2,000 to over 10,000 as quickly as possible so that we can sort of clump the attack forces instead of dealing with them over time.
Exactly. In order to do that, he is going to be taking 3 bases, I believe, unless things have changed, and then he's just going to get an absurd number of workers, more than you normally would want. And most likely, I don't know if he's going to do the safety strat here, but he's probably not going to build any tech structures or maybe just a spawning pool.
None.
None. Oh.
We're playing it bold.
So currently, in the lore of StarCraft, Phoenix is allied with the Zerg so that they can take out some enemy Terrans they all have beef with, and that's why we have a Protoss hero unit on this mission, and he is going to be really critical to our defense, as the Terrans like to send air units, and Phoenix is the only unit that we have that can realistically deal with air forces other than that handful of Hydras, but they're going to be tasked elsewhere.
Exactly. This mission, in terms of map design, is effectively a series of canyons, and the enemies will send attack through those canyons. For the most part, they're pretty consistent, but exactly where and when they hit can be a little bit iffy. Having Phoenix as a nice bulwark that can hold one area on his own is very important so that he can defend the other areas more easily with his actual army.
Yeah, StarCraft, original StarCraft has semi-randomized attack patterns. There's like windows where attacks will happen, which enemy faction will send the attack. So it's RNG where and when you actually get attacked within certain parameters, but it's very controllable. There's a lot of things that you can do to make defending against the attacks more consistent, and there's going to be a lot of little things Aces will be doing to prepare for attack phases that they don't necessarily look like much, but it's really practiced from having to deal with a lot of semi-randomized attack waves.
Exactly. A lot of micro optimizations, because this game, it can be very clunky at times, so the smaller of an adjustment you can make, the better. Now, this third base that Ace is getting is, if you look on the minimap in the bottom left, is very far out from the other ones. And as a result, if it gets hit a little bit too hard, things can be suspect. But we're going to hope that doesn't happen.
Sure are. Yeah, this is the last mission where I really have any time to chime in, because this is the slowest mission that exists. after here, it's gas, gas, gas. So we're going to run our supply at the top right, where we have our resources. We're going to run that all the way up to about 56 as the left number. And that'll give us roughly 50, 45 drones to work with. Those are our workers. And that's going to get us a huge economy by the time that the attacks start showing up. And as Ectar said, we're going to try and stay below the attack threshold to start, and then blast through to the end to minimize the time that things can go wrong.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with RTS, you can see in the top right 3 numbers. The first is for minerals. That's what we used for building almost everything, and as well is the objective on this mission. The next one is Vespene gas, which is used for spellcasters, higher tech units. And then past that we have supply, which is just how big his army is allowed to be. And then the Zerg actually have a kind of hidden 4th resource in the larva, which spawn from the hatchery periodically. Every larva can become 1 unit. Except for Zerglings. You can get 2 Zerglings because they're simple genetically and also adorable.
Well, you can get 2 Scourge as well, but...
That's true.
Yeah, Ace is not going to get a single drop of gas in this mission, as he has to get 10,000 minerals, and gas is just a distraction.
Do we actually make Scourge at any point in the speedrun?
One time for 1 unit. In Mission 6, I get a Scourge to fight off a Guardian, and that's it.
Oh.
So it doesn't bomb my base, because I get no anti-air in the mission.
Yeah, that guy's really annoying. That's a good change.
Okay, so last set of workers here. There we go. Because I have a lot of army, this is combined army and worker supply, I'm getting a couple extra workers I'm getting the same number of workers, but my army supply or total supply is going to look a little higher to me. And anybody practiced with what the numbers should look like?
Yeah, so at this point, we are fully off of building units. You're only going to see that blue number going up from here, and this is the first attack wave. This is 4, actually, Wraiths coming from the Red Terran to the east, which Phoenix could deal with pretty handedly by himself.
Fortunately, Wraiths don't do a whole lot of damage against ground. The only thing he has to do is make sure that they're not targeting down his workers. One thing you might notice Ace doing is he's taking a little bit of damage on a bunch of different units. That is because Zerg units regenerate health over time, so that means that theoretically, everything can be healed off. In practice, they'll never get to full HP. But it is nice. If you retain those units, you can get more and more value out of them.
Plus, they retain full combat effectiveness all the way down to when they die. There are some RTS where weaker units do actually lose some degree of combat effectiveness, but this is 98. It's we didn't have the technology back then.
Yeah, like squad-based RTS where you have like 5 small Marines in one. Some of them may die as the health gets lower, but in this game, 1 unit, 1 health bar, full effectiveness. So keeping as much alive as possible is very important, and you'll see me constantly pulling units back that are taking shots, so that way they have a chance to either regenerate or at least just put out damage while everything else attacks.
Yeah, that kind of pulling back weakened units is one of the most effective things that you can do in StarCraft, and because of how difficult it can be to control units, it's also one of the most skill-testing parts of playing StarCraft in general, but also the speedrun.
Looking forward, the next Wraith attack is at 6,000 from white, and then we have a very go away. We have a very scary ground attack at 8,000 resources that very well could wipe out the space, but hopefully the resource gathering operation will be finished even if they do die.
There is actually a secondary victory that is achievable on this mission, where if you destroy all of the enemy command centers or infest them, the mission will end theoretically more quickly, but no one yet has figured out how to do that faster than actually just harvesting 10,000 minerals, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a they're very well defended bases. There's one at all the spots I pinged on the map there.
But if you infest the command centers, you get a bonus in the next mission.
Dude.
Yay. Infested Terran, they're so good.
They're a real bonus.
Real bang for your buck.
I mean, 500 damage is nothing to scoff at.
Ooh, here comes another Wraith attack going right into Ace's undefended mineral line. That is unfortunate for him. He's going to lose a couple of those workers. And at the same time, he's getting to the 8,000 mineral mark, which means that Blue might start being aggressive against him, too.
This attack was very delayed.
Yeah, because we had sent all of our Hydralisks to defend the northeast base, we didn't have anyone that could shoot up except for Phoenix. But again, Phoenix is so strong. It's a good thing we're never going to have to go up against him during the speedrun.
Yeah, as Ace said, that attack was delayed. Well, sometimes the StarCraft AI just doesn't quite figure out how to get its units where it's supposed to go when. Oh, there we go. There's the nuke, and he's dead. It was a good try.
Oh, this is not good. Could be fine. Could be fine.
Here's Ace underestimating himself.
Well, that means there's more headed this way, and Phoenix is a hero unit who must survive for me to win this mission. And so if Phoenix gets put under too much pressure, I can just die. And
fortunately, Ace does have good micro.
Yep.
We've also got to the point where momentum's just going to carry us over the finish line. So as long as Phoenix doesn't die, this will be a success.
This was incredible. At no point did Blue send an attack other than the nuke.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'll take it. All right. I'm done here. Enjoy.
All right, so we've taken all of those 10,000 minerals from the previous mission, stuck them in the top right-hand corner, and now we get to spend them on things.
Yep, this mission is the fullest macro mission that you can get. You get not infinite money to start out with. He will be able to spend it pretty quickly, but he gets to go effectively on a game show spending spree. It's like he's on a Mr. Beast video.
Except it won't be anywhere near that charitable.
That very true.
So you would think 10,000 minerals is going to carry us through the mission? Absolutely not. So the first thing we do is throw down a bunch of extra hatcheries and start making more workers, because too many minerals is never enough when you're making nothing but Hydralisks.
The entire map here, you can see in the bottom left, is a fairly long rectangle, and it is effectively entirely covered in enemy units. And Ace has to kill every single one of them. Theoretically, this can take a long time if you were a casual player. It's not even going to be incredibly quick even when Ace is doing it. But he's going to do his best. It's a lot of enemies that have a lot of defensive entrenchments and firepower.
Yeah, but this mission really, it lets you live the sort of swarm fantasy. You just make so many units, you just get to send them out across the map. It's kind of the first mission that really makes you feel like, I am the swarm.
Yeah, absolutely. The later missions in this campaign, starting with about this one, do a really good job of that overall. And this is a lot of people's favorite mission for that reason. You just get so much to work with. Ace has already spent almost half of his money. He hasn't built a single combat unit.
Yeah, really the way that the end of the mission is going to play out is we're basically just going to make a giant army, send it to its death, make another giant army and send it to its death, and hopefully through that second attack wave kill all of the enemy forces. But really the first big part of this mission is just getting the capability of making that big army, getting all of the upgrades so that they attack more, they don't take as much damage, they can move and shoot better than they could baseline, and then we just throw wave after wave of our own forces at them.
Absolutely. Ace is going to be going for the Hydralisk and the Zergling, largely because, well, the Zergling costs only minerals, so we can start building them pretty quick. Those two units are very fast. The Hydralisk is also ranged, so they stack up pretty well, and the Zergling, I believe, does the highest damage per cost in the game. So once he gets them on top of the enemy, they do insane amounts of punishment.
I think they also do the most damage per second for an individual unit, but
I think that's true.
Sure.
So Ace's economy is looking pretty sweet at this point. He's going to be able to maintain a huge amount of production. These two bases will not mine out within the amount of time that he takes, and there's just Marines in his base now. That's awkward.
Yeah, normally that attack comes just a little bit slower, and this first round of Zerglings comes out. As Grant mentioned, we don't need gas, so we can start building them basically right away as soon as we're set up. Strange that the attack wave came in as quick as it did, but it didn't cause any permanent damage. And we're just in the setup phase, getting ready for that first big attack.
Yeah, you start this mission out with 2 Ultralisks. They are very big and bulky. You want to hold on to them if you can. Ace managed to keep 1 alive in that initial bust, and he should be able to absorb a little bit during this first fight. You can see he's also rallying a bunch of Overlords. This is because there are going to be a lot of cloaked units in this mission, specifically the Lurker, who is a unit that burrows down and does huge amounts of damage to ground units in a line. Ace's only real option is to try to dodge spines best he can and get on top of them and execute them quickly.
Yes, through the course of the mission, we're actually going to have to probably make a bunch of extra Overlords, just because it's a little taxing to try and micromanage the whole army as well as where those Overlords are going. So yeah, we'll end up having to remake a number of those, but they only cost 100 minerals. It's not too much of a cost. Man, Blue Terran's really aggressive today.
Yeah, he is not happy. Fortunately, not really any true damage has been dealt to Ace from this. His static defense is taking it out. That first attack that hit him didn't do very much, even though it bruised a couple of Overlords. And Ace is going to be able to move out fairly soon.
5-minute mark.
The timer in the bottom center is regular person time, right?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay, we will talk about what is not regular person time a couple of missions from now.
Oh. Oh, there are some of those lurkers that I was talking about. Ace is going to have to get some detectors over there. If they burrow, it's going to be a pain in hit. Well, there
you
they
can
go.
see
Those are the spines.
Yeah, and we couldn't see it until he got that Overlord in position.
That is good, like 10 or so lings down for Ace already. Now he is taking all of his units. They're all hotkeyed to different control groups, 1 through 10, and he is sending them the best he can. He has more units than there are hotkeys at this point, so he is now grabbing things, sending them into the fray as well.
One of the most difficult things about controlling armies in StarCraft is you can see on the bottom, you can only select up to 12 units at a time. We have 145 supply, more than half of which is Zerglings, which only cost half of a supply. So we easily have more than 120 units, which is as many as you can select in control groups total. So it becomes very hard. You end up having to just box select units and send them out without even putting them into control groups sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. The faster you can be at making an army and sending it to, the more time you can spend micromanaging it. Ace is not slow. He's playing at 150 actions, 160 actions per minute right now. However, it's still not enough to perfectly be able to control everything at the same time. StarCraft 1 is a very taxing game. All those lurker shots were devastating.
Because
However,
of the... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, however, he did a great job in this first bust. He's gotten through a lot of that initial defensive line. He's got a lot of Hydras still alive. However, his Zergling force has been depleted pretty significantly.
I think he actually retained quite a bit of army off of that first attack, too.
Yeah.
So those are some of the Scourges we were talking about earlier, but because of the way that defensive AoE units, like the Lurker, like the Siege Tank, kind of function, it's way more beneficial to wait until you have a big attack than it is to send in a large number of small attacks. So even though it looks like we have a pretty substantial army right now, we're not actually sending it all in at one time. We're going to start building up our forces again for the next big attack.
Now, Ace is going to start leveraging something called a Nidus Canal. Part of the enemy are Zerg here. Nidus Canals are instant teleportation buildings. They can only be built on creep, usually meaning that they're only defensive. However, when the enemy is also Zerg, you can take their territory, build the Nidus right there, and teleport your units right into the fray. So he's going to be able to reinforce much more quickly.
Yeah, the Nidus Canal comes up a couple of times in the speedrun. It's really great for just being able to reinforce more quickly.
Exactly. It also ignores any type of terrain because it's instant teleportation, so if there's big voids, gaps, walls, anything like that, you can ignore it. That is so many Hydras, Ace.
Yeah, we're doing great.
And the OG Ultras survived the first attack. Let's go.
He's been stuck in the back the whole time. He's an advisor.
Yeah.
Paid Zerg consultant.
He's the supervisor that all the Karens were trying to talk to.
So this is the second to last of the enemy base. Actually, it's the third to last of the enemy bases because he skipped one that he'll be doing later. They're the main Zerg defensive force. There's a lot of Guardians, Ultralists, just big heavy stuff here, but there aren't any of the big splash damage like Siege Tank, which makes it a little bit, I don't know, I don't feel as threatened on this base generally.
No, the siege tanks are really kind of the ultimate defensive unit, and the later Terran defensive locations on the different maps just become so hard to push into for that unit exactly.
And the AI places a lot of siege tanks on high ground positions. You can see that there's like various elevations in the game. If you are shooting up to a unit on the high ground, you have I believe it's 48% chance to miss, which means that this defensive unit is then insanely durable as well, and it's random, which is just awful.
Yeah, it's like they wanted to input a form of damage reduction, but again, they kind of couldn't do that, so they just gave it a 46.875 miss chance.
Is that what it is?
It is 120 out of 256.
Beautiful. All right, so Ace is busting into the main Terran fortification at this point. He's just kind of hoping things are going well. He's spreading his units out and taking down as many as he can. Whenever he sees a tank, he'll target it down like that. And he...
Oh, that spider mine! That took out like 6 Hydralisks at one shot.
He was moving to engage a siege tank down here, but he's getting spider mined really badly. This is very devastating.
Yeah, siege tanks actually have a minimum range, so he's trying to get his Hydralisks up so that they actually can't be shot by them. And at this point, we're mostly reinforcing with Zerglings. We've cracked the exterior of the base, which is what the Hydralisks are really good at. But as we mentioned before, Zerglings are the best in the game at just dealing raw damage, and buildings tend not to fight back, so all we need to do is take the buildings down quickly.
Despite the high losses of Hydras in that fight, he still managed to bust the core position. There was a base in the middle center that you can see right now that Ace actually ignored, and now his rally, that wouldn't make it to the end anyway, is going to clean that base up so that he can just save a little bit of time. Now, he does have to kill every building here, so if there's any missile turrets left unchecked, they will delay the game a little bit. But hopefully, Ace is going to grab all of them very quickly.
Is that an enemy structure just north of here?
Oh, I think it's an Overlord.
It's Valkyrie.
Okay.
Oh, that was good.
Don't be snide. I hate you.
So what Ace is doing right now is a dialogue skip. There's a lot of quote-unquote unskippable dialogue that Ace figured out how to 100% skip. I don't know how it works.
For most of them, you hold your mouse over the menu button, click it down, and then when the dialogue starts, it'll do that. There are 2 that don't work like that, and they occur on this mission. They're much harder.
Oh, so it automatically opens the menu for you, so you can save, load, and skip the dialogue. That's really cool.
Yeah, until recently, it was a very difficult trick to get dialogue skip on this mission in particular. We'll actually get to that in a second, though. You can see there's a timer on the top center. That's a 6-minute countdown timer where basically none of the enemy units will aggro or attack you until you attack them first. And so the purpose of this mission, like the previous one, is to kill all of the things. But for the first 6 minutes, we can do it almost with impunity. Even the defensive structures don't fight back. So we need to try to get critical damage done during this early phase while building up so we can make a second army to go attack with. But getting as much damage as possible during this first early part of the mission is absolutely critical.
And this is not blunt force trauma that Ace is looking to do. He's going to be surgically trying to take out enemy combat units, production structures, and things like that. There's a lot of other damage sponge type buildings that are just not important for him to kill. And it's important to maximize his time not attacking those. Because 5 minutes goes pretty quick. Also, he's going to be taking down things like this ComSat station, which provides detection for the enemy. Because cloaked lurkers, well, they were pretty good against him last mission, and he has them now.
So I said that's a 6-minute timer, which we've already lost 2 minutes of, and you can see on the bottom center, we're only at about 1.5 minutes. That's because StarCraft time plays at approximately 0.7 seconds per real second. So the game clock is counting at a faster rate than actual real-world seconds. And that carried through all the way up until, I think, Legacy of the Void in StarCraft 2 was when they finally made StarCraft seconds match with real seconds.
Yep, it was 2015. So silly. That is because the game was originally designed to be played on the normal speed, and Ace is playing on the fastest speed possible, of course.
Well, yeah, it'd be slower to play on any other speed.
So Ace is just moving around trying to take as much out as he can. He's doing a pretty solid job. Enemy are taking down some of his units. You want to lose as little as possible. There is a, like, various things you can do here. What do you want to spend your economy on while you're doing this? And Ace chooses to go for full economy instead of making a reinforcing attacking unit, which means that hopefully he can just get as much done with these forces and he doesn't need anything else. But it is a balance that people had to do a lot of experimentation with. Is it worth building extra Zerglings during the sneak attack, or is it worth just going full economy? And Ace is definitely an economy boy.
Yeah, you say that, but this mission actually has undergone a bit of a change recently. We used to take the base on the right-hand side, so we would expand twice during the sneak attack phase, but Ace has found that he doesn't actually need that extra base, and getting just the one extra base allows him to get the attack waves up more quickly, which saves time overall.
Oh, nice. Hitting a very nice balance between that army and economy. I like it. This also, it probably makes any of the attack waves significantly easier to deal with, right? Because he'll be able to utilize that bridge in order to stop things. The Protoss base on the right-hand side that you would take previously was a bit more open and potentially vulnerable.
I skip the lurkers, though, so I don't actually get their safety, so it's actually a little scarier at times. But we'll get to that, and I'll just use some sunks.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is the first mission where we really need to use the AI against itself, because, like on the previous mission, we couldn't see the burrowed lurkers that our enemy had unless we brought an Overlord nearby. That holds true for the enemy when trying to fight our lurkers, but we saw that Ace position them over this bridge, and a lot of the times they send attack waves there without detection, so they'll start trying to walk across the bridge, get attacked from a unit they can't see, and turn around and then just not know what to do from there. So those three units, which in a straight-up fight wouldn't be able to defend against all of the attack waves, will be able to because the AI can't identify that they're there.
It also is the perfect position for them, as they deal damage in a line to multiple targets potentially. Right on that bridge, if the enemy does decide to charge across, they will take catastrophic amounts of damage.
Going back to 1998 technology, also, diagonals don't exist in StarCraft. You can see every time he puts a building down, it's in squares. So all of the diagonals are just squares that you either can or can't path through, so it makes moving across diagonal bridges actually really difficult, which slows down the attack waves even more, allowing for more time for that lurker to get damage in.
Yeah, there are some pathing things in StarCraft that basically require a PhD in order to do correctly, and moving across a bridge while fighting is one of them. You literally have to be a professional to do it. All right, Ace is getting into that economic aspect of things, building up the economy, trying to make as little as possible to defend, going for a good number of sunken colonies here, very strong against these Protoss units.
Yeah, right in time, too, as these Zealots are coming in.
Yeah, this was very good timing. Now, there is a Protoss enemy and a Terran enemy on this mission, and that means that Ace has to go for a composition that is good against both. And what composition is that?
Generally, it's Hydralisks, because they just kind of kill things.
Yeah, Hydras are really good. They're really cheap, they're really fast, they have a range. There's the enemy AI trying to get across this bridge and getting very confused. They're trying their best, but their best is not very good.
Yeah, sometimes one will be particularly brave and just continue to walk through it, which can cause trouble, but most of the time, receiving attacks that they can't see is enough to just push them back.
This is great. It buys Ace time that he can get these Hydralisk upgrades. Upgrades in StarCraft are pretty expensive compared to units, and they take a very long time to complete. So being able to get them early means that he'll be able to utilize their power on a lot of Hydras later, but that means he has to skimp on defenses a bit sometimes.
Another relatively new addition to this part of the speedrun is 3 queens instead of 1. Normally we would use 1 queen to just snipe out a key objective, which we haven't seen quite yet, but they also one-shot tanks, which is incredible for dealing with a couple of tanks that are on a high ground on the Terran's base.
Oh, that's a really cool optimization. I like that a lot. Spawn Broodlings is an ability that was considered a meme for a really long time in really all forms of StarCraft, and it is finding a home both in professional play and in speedrunnings, apparently.
I didn't know it was being used professionally.
A little bit. It's not, like, super popular, but it's won games.
So there's the 3 queens. They don't spawn with enough energy to use Spawn Broodlings, so we have to spawn them in advance. of when we're going to actually need them, so they have time to build up that energy. But yeah, they play a very small but significant part of the speedrun.
So Ace is probably going to go for the Protoss first. This is partially because the Protoss AI in StarCraft 1 is not very good, and it kind of dies a lot. I personally find Terran much harder to attack into than Protoss.
That we also have those 3 lurkers set up on the bridge that the Terran tends to attack, so we're already defended well on that side. So taking out the Protoss base will mean that we're effectively now defended on that side, because that's where our army is positioned.
Right, that is a great point. And the StarCraft 1 AI, it'll attack in kind of weird places sometimes. It doesn't always take the same route, which means that being defended on all sides is necessary. You can't just predict where they're going to come from.
Yeah, I remember on a previous GDQ submission, there was actually one cloaked ghost that actually got in, and there was no detection back home, and it got a nuke off into Ace's main base.
Oh, that is okay. It's really funny, but that's also must be infuriating.
It is both.
Yeah, and I've only ever seen that happen just the one time. I've seen Ace do this mission dozens of times. I've practiced it a number of times, and I've never seen that ghost before or since.
They constantly try to, but our lurkers usually just swat them down pretty much immediately. So it has to be a time where it's both bad that I've given up the lurker bridge, which is rare, and then don't catch it afterwards, also rare. So it's not common, thankfully.
So in addition to cracking the 2 giant bases that we have in this mission, each one of them is defended by an enemy hero unit, which 1998 technology are just regular units with more stats. But they are significant story-wise.
They're also kind of dangerous. Both of them, their stat, it's not just a bit more stats. They are very bulky and can take down a lot of units if you don't have critical mass to blow them out of the water quickly. Or, you know, Ace's special tactics.
Yes. StarCraft is a big fan of special tactics.
Oh, that is 3 siege tanks right there. That's real spooky. So
Yeah.
what Ace did right there was he moved away, forcing those tanks to exit siege mode, and thus do a lot less damage, and then he was able to dive on top of them before they re-siege. That's a very important tactic in any type of StarCraft, in order to control tanks who are effectively unmatched when they're in siege mode.
Yeah, so we're giving up the lurker bridge to set up another lurker bridge closer to our enemies, so we can have our army massed up closer so we can attack there more quickly, while still covering generally all the same area that we were before.
Now Ace is going to start moving his forces down into the Protoss base, and hopefully it goes well. I believe that the enemy does eventually get Psionic Storm as an upgrade in this mission, but
We'll
never
see.
in the amount of time Ace takes to beat the mission. It's not even close. But if they did, it would be a lot harder to fight in, because that is Protoss's premier anti-Zerg spell.
It's also one of the kind of cool things about original StarCraft. All of the units that come in attack waves were built by the enemy AI. They don't just spawn units in. Like, they might start the mission with units, but then they make everything they use after that.
Oh, there's the first Reaver. Reavers do a lot of damage and do take down a couple of those Hydras early on, but he manages to snipe it. Oh,
That's bad.
good.
I wonder where that is.
I think it's usually here. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, they're
Okay, yeah, Ace is going to have to use his drones to take that down.
So, yeah,
Hopefully.
we talked about giving up the lurker bridge, and that guy might have just slipped in there during that little interim. Luckily, the drones can take it out if we spot it quickly.
God.
So there's Phoenix, our ally from a couple of missions ago. Wonder what he's doing here.
He'll be fine. It's good to see him. Hopefully he has 10,000 more minerals.
Yeah, we could really use it.
We won't
this
find
is-
him easy prey.
This is one of the harder dialogue skips to get, which Ace has found how to make more consistently recently.
Got him.
Yep.
So the way that we got the original dialogue skip is we scroll the screen away, and the game tries to force your screen into position to watch the in-game cutscene. And while that screen scroll is happening, that's when you can pause the game, save, and reload to activate the dialogue skip more quickly, or more consistently.
Importantly, you have to get it within 2 frames of the dialogue starting, and you can buffer during the load screen, so I hit the pause during the load screen, so that way I can get it first frame and not have consistency issues with it, which was the big problem with it in the past.
Yeah, this was a discovery within, like, the last week or two.
By me, I think it's been known, but...
Well,
yeah.
It's a very small speedrunning community, so there's not a lot of strategy sharing going on.
True, very true.
So the blue Protoss base has been effectively cleared out by Ace, and now he's going to have to get all of his forces together once these buildings are gone, or mostly gone, to fight into the Terran base, which is a much harder bust.
Yeah, siege tanks are incredibly strong defensively. That's why we're not bringing all of our forces down to clear out the blue base. We're just kind of using what's left over there, and we're mostly massing up in the center of the base so that we can begin our attack into the bottom left.
So
and
not
that's where
only
our
is
other
it
queens
siege
are going to
tanks-
come into play.
Ah, yes, the queens. But not only is it siege tanks, but also we have to attack across the diagonal bridge now. Rather, Ace does. And you get a conga line going a lot of the time. It can be a bit of a pain.
Yeah, it's a lot less fun than a conga line on a cruise ship, that's for sure.
Yeah, just look at these guys. They're trying their best. They really are. Their best is just not very good.
And these are the particularly hard to crack siege tanks, being that they get that 47% chance to just dodge any attack that's coming up on them because they're on the high ground.
Yeah, Ace had decent luck with them right there. They didn't just become ninjas, but anything can happen with them. And he's going to jump in. He's going to take down 2 of these very high priority tanks. Now, spellcasting in StarCraft 1 is harder than in StarCraft 2 or really any other modern RTS. You have to manually select the unit that you want and then click the spell you want to use and the target. If you have multiple spellcasters selected, they will all waste their spell on the same target, even if it doesn't stack. Which is just extra work for Ace to do.
But tell me it isn't cool to have a full control group worth of a High Templar all casting Psystorm in the same spot. Tell me you didn't do that as a kid.
That one specific location has a very bad day.
So any of the particularly eagle-eyed viewers can see that we actually have another ghost attack. That's wild.
That one's going to go too.
There's actually one missile turret on an island in the middle of the base that we have to specially prepare units to destroy.
It's fine. The mission,
Yeah.
practically done.
We have
still hurts.
It feels bad, but we've already done all the building that we really need.
Yeah.
I think you're just coping, man.
You know, it's a little bit of column A, column B.
Yeah, that one missile turret we have to get Overlord drops just so we can take care of, because we can't reach it from land and we don't build any air units for this mission.
Yeah, Zerg is lacking a long-range siege unit. They could, like, bop it from the mainland. It's really kind of a troll missile turret.
Yeah, I'm
If you're playing
surprised
this
that a lurker
casually-
can't hit it.
Yeah, it should be able to. It's weird that it can't. If you're playing this mission casually, you have to find all the buildings, and that is one that can take quite a while to actually discover. Now, here's the second hero unit. This is Duke. Duke is a battlecruiser that hits really hard. He 2-shots basically everything, but Ace has enough that he's going to be fine.
Yeah, and that'll be another dialogue skip as he goes down.
He said a bad word.
Did you really think I'd allow you to come into
During the last submission, all of these dialogues that we weren't skipping was a great time for donations.
responsible for the hell
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to go so fast now that we don't have time for that. There's a good, like, 5 or 6 minutes of dialogue in this campaign, right?
Yeah.
It was 6.5, I think.
That's brutal.
Yep.
It's really nice that Ace found the completely consistent way to skip, because it was a lot.
But as we finish up, that is going to be the end of this mission, and we're going into one of the really interesting missions compared to a casual playthrough.
1630 is an incredible time.
Yeah, that is.
So we're already under attack. This is Fury of the Swarm, and the way the mission is supposed to start is we have 4 bases in the outlying areas and 1 central base. All of those outlying bases get killed off, and then we have to rebuild our army and then take the map back afterwards. But there's a really cool strat where we actually hide a couple of units, a drone in particular, so that we can rebuild one of our expansions so that we can get our macro up twice as fast.
Yeah, exactly. The enemy leaves a very paltry force after they wash over you, and he's going to have to do a little bit of fancy baiting in order to take these lurkers down. Lurker's going to burrow. First one is detected, so it's going to die fairly quickly. And then the second one, oh, he's just going to, yeah, he's going to go back and forth. The lurker sees his zerglings and then tries to chase after them, and he takes it out before it reburrows. Good micro from Ace.
Yeah, between the two, they only got 2 shots off and only lost 1 or 2 zerglings, which will not be significant for the rest of the run.
Yeah, it was 0. Ace is too good. I can't believe you'd think that Ace would lose his zergling to a lurker.
I mean, I've seen it once or twice before.
I can't believe you'd think it. He's trying hard now.
Ace, when he's actually trying at something, is a really scary beast.
Alright, I have the first time to relax in a little while is I only have to press the drones key for a little while we do the standard build-up economy and play the game, so this, in a marathon setting, would be a wonderful time to squeeze in some donations, but instead, since we don't have any here, we have just more wonderful Grant and Ectar time.
What does Ace do on this mission now? I have not talked about any mission with Ace more than this mission, and it has gone through 50 different iterations of how things are done. So I don't know what the modern meta is.
Current strat is a Ling drop. Big Zergling drop energy. So, if you want to talk about the layout of the map and the objective, that'll tie right into it.
Alright, so the map is, effectively, there's a Terran base due west of where Ace is. It's all the way to the far side. And then the map, Ace is on an island right now. And there are like 2 peninsulas to the north and the south that have Zerg bases. Ace doesn't want to go through the Zerg bases because all he has to do is eliminate the Terran. Specifically 25, it's 25, right?
30.
30 scientists that are in that base. The actual enemies don't matter. So what he's going to do is try to circumvent the enemy with overlords upgraded to drop zerglings, and then he's going to, well, drop a lot of zerglings and chase down a bunch of scientists and kill them.
Yep, we did this, as Grant said, this mission has gone through several iterations. There's been a Nidus Canal strategy that's been developed. There's a Hydralisk drop strategy that has been developed, and now there is a Zerglings drop strategy, which I believe I have pioneered, but, you know, again, there's not a lot of community to this, so somebody may have found it before and just never mentioned it.
Wasn't it originally Mutas?
You can, but only with the Super Muta.
Oh, of course it was that bug, but that doesn't exist in modern versions of the game.
Correct.
Yeah, so 1.0 StarCraft is one of the buggiest messes I've honestly ever seen. You could get your Zerglings and upgrade them into Mutalisks that carried all of their Zergling upgrades.
And they only cost 1 supply, and it was 25 gas instead of 100, so they were a quarter of the cost. It was really fair.
Yeah, and extremely balanced.
Basically every mission strategy in the 1.04 version of this run was do that. And it was honestly pretty awful.
Yeah, that's why I think all of us prefer playing the game on current patch.
Yeah, current patch definitely is just a lot more interesting and dynamic for what you do. There's a lot of different strategies at play.
We here in the StarCraft speedrunning community do not condone the murder of scientists outside of exactly this mission.
As a scientist, I approve.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
He's one of the scientists.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's times in StarCraft 2 where you murder scientists.
Dr. Narud.
I was gonna say,
Dr.
also,
Narud. He's Narud PhD.
don't you do that in the Nova Covert Ops?
Do you kill any... Maybe.
I mean, you beat him in Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, for Narud specifically, yeah.
Yeah, for Narud specifically. In Nova Covert Ops, there's definitely some scientists that you can either mind control to open doors, or you can just shoot and then their friends will get scared and run onto door triggers inconsistently and lose my world record.
Alright, so we can see we're starting to get our big army of Zerglings. We're going to be putting them into these Overlords, which should be getting their speed upgrade relatively soon. And that will allow them to be much quicker in this drop, and we're going to bring them over into the science facility area, which has a bunch of Terran units that we mostly want to try to get around if we can, kill what we can't get away from, and then just murder all the science men.
Yeah,
I believe
the Zerg are significantly stronger, and they intentionally do that in this mission, so you do just go after their the Terran facility. And so that's why we're going to drop right into the Terran facility, as opposed to do anything else.
Yeah, he has to make sure to not make the Zerg angry, or if he does make the Zerg angry and come defend, for as low amount of time as possible.
So one of the things that the developers really like doing on any mission that involves an island is just putting a ring of missile turrets around the outside. So we're going to have one Overlord set up in front with nothing in it, just to take the shots from missile turrets so we don't lose any of our units going into the attack. Otherwise, you can lose up to 8 Zerglings if it targets an Overlord that we haven't already gotten the units out of.
How consistent is this drop? It's pretty decent, right?
It's pretty darn good, and I go a little overkill on it. You can do it with 14 Overlords. I've done it with as little as 12, and we're going to go with more than 14 for this.
Nice. Because this mission, consistency-wise, for a very long time, was a pain in the butt.
Yes.
And this is kind of where that StarCraft semi-random movement and patterns really comes into play. The scientists have pretty much free reign over that area, and they can go just about anywhere within it, and even just a little bit past where like all the buildings are. So being able to quickly find and eliminate the scientists is critical, but also can be somewhat random.
Yeah, I believe that they do have, like...
And those are the Scourge.
There they go.
Mentioned them all the way back in Mission 1, I think.
It's good to see them. Ace does have the better Zerglings, so he's fine. Oh, I was going to say something. Oh, the scientists that he has to kill, I believe that they all have, like, designated zones or patrol paths originally, but once the fighting starts, they kind of just vominos and go wherever, because they're scared.
Yep. That is
so
entirely correct.
You have a basic idea of exactly where they're going to... Or not exactly, but a basic idea of where they're going to be, and then the longer you take, the more it falls into chaos, and it can compound really badly.
Okay, so we're grouping up for our big attack wave now, and we can see we're actually starting to produce a couple of Mutalisks. These are just kind of our cleanup force if our attack wave gets wiped out. If there's only a couple of scientists left, we can bring in the Mutalisks to just wipe out the rest of the scientists that remain afterwards. They aren't always necessary, but it's great to have them as a backup because we have money that we're not using otherwise at this point.
It is worth mentioning that as soon as these drop, it is going to be very tough for Ace to control. This is a lot of Zerglings, and getting all of the Overlords to drop properly at the same time in StarCraft 1 is not easy. So it's going to be a bit hectic for him.
Ace mentioned it's more than 14 Overlords, each of which hold 8 Zerglings, so that's in excess of like 112 Zerglings that we're going to be trying to control during this attack wave. And there's Terran defense, there's lurkers that we have to look out for. It can be very hectic and chaotic sometimes.
You can see the scientists around here. They're the like thin, lanky guys in white, and he's trying to take them down the best they can. You can see that they're just running everywhere. There's a scientist counter in the top left if you want to keep track at home. And it does look like he's doing decently so far. Well,
it is necessary. Yeah, it's necessary to kill a lot of the defenders. You can't just go straight for the scientists, or they will kill your whole army. But at a certain point, once you've gotten a lot of the defenders down, that's when you really switch to focusing primarily on scientists.
Oh, things like that Ultralisk are a big problem for Ace, though. Stalls him out for a long time and takes down a ton of his units.
Sometimes the medics can be really trolling if they start healing the scientists as well.
I
more.
can't click on him. I can't click on there. I got him to click, but I'm running out of stuff.
Yeah, that's where the backup.
Reminder,
that's where the backup Mutalisks come in.
StarCraft is a 2D game fundamentally, so it can be really weird to click on stuff sometimes.
Yeah, we can see one scientist that's up there just past that science facility. We have enough lings to take it out. Yeah, we got a nice one trapped there. 2 more remaining, and now we just have to find where they're hidden.
This is Really rough for Ace. One more.
Is he hiding in here? No. I don't know where this dude is.
Yeah, at this point, Ace is going to split everything he has, just fan out, try to find it, because it's got to be somewhere.
Could hide behind the depot.
Yep.
It's not there. Filer pen, no. Zergling pen, no. Cannot,
Top
he
left.
blends in with the terrain so well. Oh boy. My dude,
This
where
is
are you?
such bad luck from Ace.
Ah! That's a medic. Could he be farther down here? He's got a trigger. He can't go past the bunker. There he is. Oh,
There he is.
man. There we go.
Good find, good snipe.
Yeah.
Ace was dealt a very bad hand there, and he did manage to handle it well. He was doing well in time before that,
Oh, boy.
so it's okay. Now, this mission is super spooky.
It is, but I think it's actually super cool. It's another one of those missions where you're supposed to build up a big army and go systematically deal with a bunch of different Protoss bases, but we don't really have time for that. So we're going to do it with a small ragtag force and one sneaky boy.
The objective is to bring the Ghost unit, Samir Duran, to all 5 of these control points. Each one of them kind of acts like a little mini objective that he has to get through. The first one in the top right has a huge number of Reavers that will deal 100 damage apiece to him. Duran only has 300 HP, so what he's going to do is he's going to cloak, and he's going to try to avoid it all. Fires a lockdown spell to disable the farthest left Reaver, and then he's barely going to tap it and get out before they can see.
Lockdown has exactly the same range as the attack range of those Reavers, so whether one of them does or doesn't attack is a little bit RNG. And then we can see we just consume, which allows him to regain 50 energy, which is going to be very useful for the next part of the run.
Right. Duran has cloaking that drains energy over time, and the lockdown spell that works on mechanical units like those Reavers also drains energy over time, but he can eat his own Zerg units for that energy. And there's a balance between not eating all of your forces and having enough energy to use your spells. Now, he's going to snipe that photon cannon, which is a detector that can see invisible units, and that means that the Cloaked Duran can get right past onto this second point.
Yeah, there was an observer that came by, and it's actually still following a little bit. We could hear a Dark Templar swipe hit him a little bit. 200 health is enough at this point in the mission, but we really can't afford to take too many more big bursts of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see we end up resetting there because we took a little bit too much damage from the Dark Templar.
You can actually see in the top right the observer there. It's a very small blur. It is tough to see, but Ace is going to have to dodge it the best he can so that it doesn't show off his unit. Oh, it's right there on top of the guys. It's very tough. But he gets through this time.
Yeah, it's not consistent where it's at. And yeah, that one's just patrolling back and forth on this base. So we'll just slide by when it moves away and not take the damage. That is
Is that Dark Templar following you?
No, he won't be.
Oh. Okay.
Specifically reloaded just because if that was a PB attempt, I'm definitely going for it, but we have to play this safe and not crazy.
Yeah, fortunately, loads in StarCraft are pretty fast. They are a time loss, of course, but it's not like modern game load times.
Yeah, we're going to snipe out another one of these cannons so we can get in and hopefully not get seen too much by that, as well as because we're not attacking with Duran, the enemy aggro shouldn't go onto him too much, and we're able to get in, get that little control point, and get out of dodge before taking any damage on Duran.
300 health here is fantastic.
Yeah, now comes a little bit of a spooky part. This entire mission is spooky.
You know
It
what?
can go wrong very quickly.
Let's go defend this.
Yeah, that's a pretty big attack.
That's a standard attack, but if I'm playing aggressive, I can ignore it. If not, though, this will end up... If things go any amount of wrong, it's a full reset. And I don't want a full reset.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and take that a little slow.
We ran this mission just to see what the theoretical time limit was. We just put Power Overwhelming, which makes your units invulnerable, on, and moving Duran just from control point to control point without doing anything else, and compared it to the best time that Ace had gotten doing the mission normally. and the difference was, I think, less than 20 seconds. This mission, when played for PB attempts, is very well optimized.
So this is a pretty tough part that Ace is going to be doing. He has to charge his Zerglings across the bridge, try to distract the enemies, eliminate the photon cannon, and get Duran not blocked by movement. Just soak as much damage as possible and get right past this main base. Usually you are intended to clear out that base, but you don't have to if you do this.
Cool. Alright, Duran still has perfect health right now, so that means this mission is pretty much a free win from here. 100% consistency from this point.
I think you said 150 is where you really want to be. Lower than that is feasible, but is kind of unlikely. But 300 health, like Ace said, pretty much could just path Duran to the control points from here and not really have to worry about too much else.
Yep, it's about 200 for this beacon. And then 110 for the last one, and we're walking in with over 250. So this is the freest finish to this mission. So yeah, taking that just a little bit slower. Live Split says I have some time loss, but it was well worth it for a kind of marathon setting where we just want everything to go right.
You got a pretty quick capture there too. That was nice.
Yeah, that last capture can take, well, as Ectar said before, every trigger can take quite a while to trigger sometimes, so... And the final one is the only one that matters for your time.
It checks for triggers every 2 in-game seconds, so every about 1.4 real-world seconds. So sometimes when you're trying to play really fast, you'll hit a trigger point and then try to move your units away and actually not capture it at all. Vile Disruption, the first mission, is actually very prone to having that happen.
All right, so this is to slay the beast, which is another one of those hard missions. This is going to involve one very specific drop attack against the Overmind, where Ace is going to have to get a very powerful army and take the Overmind down, while at the same time making sure that he has Dark Templar units right next to it, who are very fragile, and he has to do this while the enemy are fighting him. So it can be a real pain.
In the lore, it was discovered that Dark Templar energies disrupt the Zerg hive mind. So they need to have Dark Templar be the ones to strike the killing blow on the Overmind so that it isn't able to regenerate. In terms of actual gameplay, they just need to have a Dark Templar nearby. But as Grant mentioned, they're extremely fragile and can go down to just incidental AoE, so we need to be very careful with our one big attack that we end up making.
Is it still Ultras?
Yeah,
it is.
We're going to go 8-8, 8 Ultra, 8
Nice.
DT.
I like it.
Go from there.
If I recall correctly, you had a new strat involving the Devourers on this map, is that correct?
Not that I know of. I don't know a Devour strat.
I thought you were
Do you mean
doing something
Defilers?
with it. No, it was. I thought there was a new strat you were doing with Devourers.
I could sack off the Devourers for supply, but that's about it.
Okay.
Oh, I was really excited for a Devourer strat. That sounded awesome.
So I'll point it out here. Is that these boys are Devourers. They do some funky anti-air. They're air-to-air only specialists, but they're not very good at it. So
this is an early attack wave from the enemy. Ace is going to try to use these invisible Dark Templar to protect his workers. He does lose a drone, which isn't the end of the world, but it also sucks.
It's thankfully on this mission it's even less impactful than most because there's just not much to do on it. Our limiting factor is Vespene gas. This here. Oh, come on, buddy. And so as long as we have enough minerals eventually, we'll be fine. But Vespene gas is the real short issue here, so we're going to maximize that, which is a little unlike most other missions.
Yeah, we kind of mentioned before that gas is used for high-tech units, and we're going all Tier 3 Zerg units for our actual attack wave. bunch of Ultralisks, a couple of Defilers, because they have very strong spells that'll allow us to last a lot longer, as well as the Dark Templar, which I think are tier 2.5, but are still very, very gas-intensive.
They're tier 3. I mean, if High Templar are tier 3, then Dark Templar are tier 3.
Okay.
It's the same building. Yeah, so the area the Ace is going to have to attack into is arguably the best defended place in the game, like all StarCraft missions, which is why he needs those big, beefy Ultralisks. They're the only thing that can snipe an objective and not, you know, get vaporized by the defenses there. A little bit of a more annoying attack, but Ace is taking these down very cleanly. These Templar have shields that will regenerate about as quickly as Zerg HP. Either way, they will regenerate, so as long as he doesn't take health damage on them, it'll be fine.
Yeah, this mission is about as close to an auto-scroller as we get in the speedrun, because we are basically hard limited to how fast we can go off of how quickly we can get Vespene gas, which we get it as quickly as is physically possible. So a lot of the early part of this mission, it's like actual war, where it's 90% setup and 10% abject terror.
And that 10% abject terror is like an understatement. It is real scary.
All right, we've got a lot of upgrades to get. We've got to get Overlord speed, Overlord drops, Ultralisk armor, Ultralisk speed, 8 Ultralisks, and 8 Dark Templar, and then we're ready to go. It's a long setup period that goes for about 5 more minutes, and then we go off to the races.
This is another great time for any donations.
As simple as this is in concept, making sure you don't mess up the order of this or anything is rather important. In order to not lose time needlessly. I very recently lost a PB because I did not get Overlord drops in time. And just forgot.
Ace was all ready for the big attack and realized that he didn't even start Ultralisk drop, which is like a 1.5, 2 minute upgrade time, so huge time loss just having forgotten to get a critical upgrade.
Yeah. We can start building our army units now, and I'm going to build them in a ratio such that when we're done, when we're towards the end of the mission, we can get, there's our war drops. We can get both the last units for the Protoss and the last units for the Zerg out at the same time, and that's just a little bit of time save.
Yeah, one thing worth noting is that Ace does not have the ability to rebuild any of his Protoss stuff, so if something did happen to it, like, for example, those pylons being depowered, he would kind of just be dead. So he's got to be a little bit careful there. It's almost never an issue, but StarCraft 1 is weird. And you never entirely know.
Yeah, this mission can be done more quickly, but for a marathon setting, it's important to have consistency, so we go a little bit over the number of Ultralisks and a little bit over the number of Dark Templar that we explicitly need if we're trying to go as fast as possible. But it's better to take a little bit longer during the setup and have a consistent attack than to have to have a safety save and make 2 or even 3 attempts at the actual attack on the Overmind.
Yep. Yeah, the fully... Oh, this is the scary attack wave because they bring infested Terrans.
I thought we said infested Terrans weren't scary.
They're scary to me. The fully optimized strat has this build timed out perfectly where the Defiler will get the correct 200 energy at just the right time. There they are. Cool. And you'll get 8 Ultralisks and 6 Dark Templar. We're going to go for 8 and 8 just to boost our consistency a little bit.
And you can see that the attack waves in this map really not very threatening. We lost a couple of Hydralisks, but they're not necessary for the level anyway. it's really the hard part of this mission, casually, is just pushing through and destroying the bases. But again, destroying bases is a lot slower than destroying one single building, so that's the strategy that we're going to opt to go for.
Though that one single building still has 5,000 hit points.
2,500. It's made of paper.
That's what, 5 gateways? No, that's two and a half gateways.
2.5 now. Alright, so what I'm going to do is try and delay the upgrades I need, because they can be researched while I'm moving out onto the map. But the units cannot. The units have to all be loaded up and ready to go. So that's a little bit of an optimization that I can do in order to get my attack moving just a little bit sooner.
And as is common for RTS games, when you research a new upgrade, it will affect your existing units. You don't have to make new units to get the benefit from that upgrade.
I'm sorry, it's 2,500? I could have sworn it was 5,000. Am I an idiot?
Could be mass recall moment.
We'll find out in just a moment.
I can guarantee it's 25, or else I'm not doing this mission right. Else, we're in danger.
Oh, the Protoss one is 5,000. Different Overminds, different HP values. Today I learned.
Yeah, this is just a baby.
Oh yeah, there's Overmind and Overmind with Shell in the editor.
Oh, of course. Does Shell make you stronger?
Apparently.
All right, Ace is finally getting real close to having everything he needs, and he's going to be able to go on a magical adventure.
Why are you putting the Dark Templar 2 and 2 in these overlords, just so they drop faster?
Yeah, so what we want to do, every single overlord is going to have 2 units inside of it, and that makes sure that when I go to drop them, they drop at a constant rate, so they'll drop all of 1, all of 2. And that's it. I don't have to try and wait for these Dark Templar to go out in a group of 4. That'll take too long while we're taking extremely heavy fire. So as soon as I hear 1 drop, 2 drop, I just send everything, and you'll get to see that in just a minute.
Yeah, by far the single most important unit is the Defiler. It's got an ability called Dark Swarm, where every unit under it will take 0 damage from ranged attacks, which are all of the most threatening attacks, but it's a reciprocal ability, which is why one of the big reasons why we have Ultralisks and Dark Templars, because they're both melee and therefore won't be affected by Dark Swarm.
Exactly. Dark Swarm, a lot of people would argue, is probably the strongest spell in the history of RTS. It is insanity, and Ace is going to leverage it to become immune to everything except for splash damage. He is fighting largely against Terran here, and Terran don't have a source of melee. Only his Zerg enemies do, and there's only a few of those. So there's the first Dark Swarm. It's going to provide him a
1,
perfectly safe
2.
landing area.
There we go.
And now he's going to go. He's going to charge out, and then he's going to drop another Dark Swarm on the target. He takes a very specific path with those Ultralisks and gets the Dark Swarm down. Now everything is going to get on top of it, and he targets it down.
How much health? 2,500.
2,500.
Boom. There we go. And
Easy.
just barely, too. That's why I go 8 and 8. The Dark Templar are by far the scariest part of this, because they're so fragile they can get splashed down by the lurkers, and that's no good.
Was that the shell?
Of course.
I like to believe that the Overlord is basically a hermit crab.
I like hermit crabs.
Yeah, the Overmind is actually just the hermit crab from Treasure Trove Cove in Banjo-Kazooie.
All right, 2 more missions left for Ace.
Love this mission. One of my favorites.
What is this mission called? Reckoning?
The Reckoning, but not the Heart of the Swarm one.
Oh, it's not the Reckoning. It's wait. I know one is the Reckoning and one is Reckoning.
This is the Reckoning.
Okay,
StarCraft
so
2
this
mission
is-
is Reckoning.
Got it. Because so this was singular when it came out. That's how I'll remember it. And the other one turned it into one of many Reckonings. So what Ace is going to do here is he has 30 minutes to kill the enemy, and he's going to need almost all of that time in the next mission. Right now, what he's going to do is, instead of going through these very precarious paths to the north or the south and having to fight through Terran bases and all that kind of stuff, there's this nice little area behind the Protoss base that, you know, he's gonna just send his troops back there instead and start cleaving them out from behind.
And if Ace does a really good job and there's more than 5 minutes left on the timer, there's a bonus mission that comes in after this that we're absolutely not going to be playing unless...
Actually, we are. This is the donation incentive. I could actually splice it in secondary.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, but that's the donation incentive, is to play the bonus mission. It takes
I didn't know it had that
3 minutes.
3 minutes? It's way less than 3 minutes.
Duran talks for 2 of them.
Oh, yes, of course. Can you not skip that?
I can. It's a hard window. I haven't actually done it because I haven't practiced this, because we don't do it in the run. But,
right, of course.
Yeah.
So what Ace is doing right now is all the buildings that you can see on the right side of the mini-map have to be destroyed, and he's using these Guardians to take down some that are on high ground locations, just to make things easier a little bit later. Now he's moving a drone and some other forces with his overlords over this area, and he's going to start building a hatchery on that side.
Yeah, like Grant mentioned earlier in the run, a Nidus Canal can only be established on creep, and there are no other Zergs on this mission. So we're actually going to put down a hatchery so we can make creep, so we can put down a Nidus Canal, because it makes reinforcements much, much quicker than trying to ferry them over across via Overlord.
Now, Ace is going to be fighting against Protoss, and Protoss tend to be very soft against Hydralisks, though they do have a couple scary units like the Reaver that can one-shot Hydralisks in an area. So Ace is going to try to retain these Guardians and use them to take out the high-priority threats while he rallies in lots of forces with his Nidus Canal once it's finished.
Yeah, the Guardians outrange basically anything on the ground, and definitely anything that Protoss has, so you can use them to either lure in softer targets like the Dragoons, and as well as to try to poke away the Reavers, so he can control how the army engagements are happening to a certain degree.
You can see the Ace is putting his Hydras and his Ultra right behind these Guardians in case they pull enemies, and he will be able to deal with them without losing the Guardians. The Guardians do a lot of pain. Here comes the first wave of people. Lurkers are burrowed, engage that Archon really quickly, and just keep those Guardians safe.
I like the one errant observer. Oh, there's the Reaver. One shot, mostly only hit onto the Ultralisk, which is the one that you want to be taking these shots because he has so much hit points. And really don't want to go onto the Hydralisk because they're so fragile in comparison.
So this is a very delicate dance where Ace is going to try to use these Guardians to take down the Reaver, but the opponent has Dragoons, which can take down the Guardians, and he has to use his army to take down the Dragoons, which then can be killed by the Reaver. So it's this square of pain. Fortunately, the AI, not as good as Ace is.
No, the AI is exceptionally poor at StarCraft, which is why it tends to cheat in a lot of ways. Like if you play against the AI in a multiplayer game, it actually just has full vision of where everything is. It's the only way they can try to make up the difference between actual player skill.
Oh, there is Reaver number 2.
Ooh, they're looking good though.
Yeah, good job baiting that into just the one unit.
Now there's just one more Reaver after this, right? Number 3?
Yep. Reaver 3.
Unfortunately, a Scout has been pulled onto those Guardians. Scouts do a lot of anti-air damage.
Yeah, down to one's...
he disengages.
Yeah, down to one's a little sketchy. We'll see what we can do here. We're probably just going to go play dive.
Oh, that was a pretty good shot, honestly. Not for the enemy, but for Ace. It didn't do as much damage as it could have.
Yeah, it deals more damage the closer the explosion is, so it only ended up hitting, I think, onto 2 units. So, really good job of spreading that damage, making sure he doesn't take a big shot into the middle of his army. And with the Reavers down, that is the floodgates open to just start going and tearing through the actual base proper, because a lot of these missions, once you get through the outer defense, the inner part of the base tends to be very lightly defended, if defended at all.
Yeah, for the most part, StarCraft 1 enemies only have a couple production structures, often one of each type, which means their ability to rebuild is very limited. There's a carrier. Carriers are not actually intimidating. They're very micro-intensive units in StarCraft 1. They're not the brute force units they are in StarCraft 2. As a result, when the opponent can't micro, they just die easily. Another micro-intensive unit is this Dark Archon that the enemy just doesn't know how to use.
I don't have the research for it yet.
Yeah, they don't have any of the spells. Does Maelstrom also take a research?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, what a bad unit.
Only feedback is default.
Oh, man. Yeah, so it literally had no spells that it could cast despite being only a spellcaster. I think that if you take about 15 minutes more, it gets its abilities unlocked, right?
I think it's literally the 15-minute mark. This was
Incredible.
a little slow overall because of the slow start, popping the Reavers and having to dive for him with the Hydralisk. We did take a good chunk of damage, but we're going to be just fine on time, and I think we might be able to get to that bonus mission.
Yeah, it'll be pretty close, but I believe you can do it.
Yeah, finish this up before that timer goes down past the 5-minute mark remaining.
I don't know. There's like 4 more pylons you got to take out, dude. Are you sure you can do it? Oh, 5 pylons.
And a shield battery.
Do shield batteries work on buildings in StarCraft 1?
I don't think they do.
They do not.
They're a meme. They also stun units while they're regenerating. It's awesome.
But they do have
Yeah.
a very fast regen rate, which is pretty good at times. If you notice, the Reavers earlier actually do run back and run to the shield battery, so if you don't kill them quickly, you'll actually just lose to them because they'll keep regenerating shields and it just bleeds off a bunch of time.
I've actually seen them used in competitive play recently as well.
They're not something you want to use in competitive play, but you'll use them if you have to.
They certainly don't hold up to their StarCraft 2 counterparts, that's for sure.
Not at all.
Alright, dialogue skip through this.
I said you were free to go.
Oh, we're getting there. There's a whole lot of story here. This is the 6.5 minutes of dialogue. Oh, you got the bonus mission, Ace. Good job.
Yeah. I love that it's faster to have Zeratul say what than it is to
skip
it. Yeah. Alright.
All right, final mission.
Minus the bonus one that's going to get recorded at a different time.
This is Omega. This is the biggest, baddest mission in, I would say, all of StarCraft. You are 1 versus 3, and all 3 foes are extremely dangerous. So you have to make big armies, you have to make smart decisions, and you have to not get overrun, which is very easy for them to do. With a little trick there, you can use the Zergling to actually take all of those spider mines and not take any damage onto it, because StarCraft 1 is a perfect game with no flaws.
Yeah, if you stick under... Is it the terrarium thing that causes you to be immune?
I think
Yeah,
so,
it's really weird. There's just like random doodads, and if you're standing under them, you're immune to explosions. Why not?
Of course.
So, as I said before, the mission where you get 10,000 minerals is a lot of people's favorite to play. From a story perspective or just a thematic perspective, people love Omega because it is just, you have to murder everybody and they're all really tough, which is why people don't like it when they have to play it, because it's really hard. Now, Ace is going to be making a lot of flippin' Hydralisks. That is his strategy, because once again, that is what can fight multiple factions at the same time in a timely fashion.
I'm not saying that I used Power Overwhelming to cheat through the story of StarCraft Brood War, but I definitely used Power Overwhelming as a kid to cheat through the campaign of StarCraft Brood War.
I mean, I did too, and I probably
Same.
still lost.
Same. That's very early. Okay, everything looks normal here, which is good. Other than this attack coming a little early, so each faction will attack me once at the start, and hopefully it's nothing too major.
Another one of those maps where the semi-random attack patterns can cause trouble sometimes. There was a run a few days ago where 3 attack waves came from the same location at the same time and caused actually quite a bit of damage to the base, but getting a little bit more favorable attack patterns this time.
That is brutal. So this is the UED's quote-unquote attack wave, which is 3 Marines.
Look, they're still building up their forces just like we are.
They definitely don't have 4 battlecruisers.
Oh, there's Marine number 4. He got lost.
Where's the Goliaths?
Yeah, there's like 2 Goliaths, right?
Yeah, so the UAD has the most inconsistent attacking AI. They're the most likely to go on a different path and go explore the world or something while they attack, so...
This is partially because the Goliath has the second worst pathing in the game after the Dragoon.
Yeah. So they kind of just end up somewhere a lot of times.
This will definitely not come to haunt Ace later.
Where's the Minsk attack wave, though? That's what I'm more concerned about. We haven't had a red attack yet. And that...
Yeah, he usually hits first, right?
You know, he hits at some point, but... It is strange that he hasn't done anything.
You said to slay the beast that the Overmind is the single most well-defended base in StarCraft. I think you could argue that Menk's base on this mission is in contention.
Well, it depends if you have Butas or not. In this speedrun, absolutely, it's abysmally tough to fight into it. But if you have Mutalisks, you just kind of laugh at him.
That's fair.
Because he goes pure anti-ground, pure choke point, splash damage, and then you have one flying unit. He's like, oh no, what do I do?
He has Wraiths and missile turrets, definitely high-quality defenders.
Yeah, definitely. He also has a lot of science vessels, which he doesn't really use Irradiate with, so...
Doesn't have it yet.
Shout out to all of the missile turret pilots out there. If you zoom in, you can actually see there's a guy in the center of the spinning portion of the missile turret.
Yeah, Dizzy Danny, that's his name.
I didn't know he had a nickname.
I just made it up.
Ah. So actually fighting under these doodads can cause small amounts of problems. We mentioned that units on high ground have a chance to dodge incoming range attacks. Units being shot past a doodad actually have the same mischance. It doesn't come up as often as high ground does, but I've seen certain professional players and personalities get enraged at missing due to the doodads.
Calling Artosis a professional player is very charming.
I added personalities.
I saw that. I saw the backtrack there. Alright, so you can see the Ace's economy is going absolutely bonkers at this point. He's making sure to get proper defenses at everywhere, getting free bases, trying to control the umbrellas. If you control the solar umbrellas, you control the world. And then he's going to start pumping.
Yep, we go up to 70-something supply before we even think about hitting a key that doesn't involve a drone or an overlord. And that's going to give us the largest economy we get in this speed run. In order to push through the ridiculous amount of reinforcements that the enemy will be provided.
Yeah, Zerg scaling in StarCraft, both 1 and 2, tends to be very exponential in nature, so getting up to that high drone count quickly allows you to just absolutely go asymptotally awesome.
In theory, based on the design of this mission, you can attack the enemies in any order, like you have the freedom to choose, but for the speedrun, there's a very clear order in which to attack, as the Protoss are by far the weakest of the 3 factions early, but they become more threatening with time and with the ability to get their upgrades. They're going to be the first target here.
As always, the Protoss get bullied first. The Zerg Cabal's at it again.
Modern meme.
Have you been engaging in balanced discussions again, Grant? Is that what I'm sensing here?
I never do anything. I just watch other people get angry.
Ah, that's smart.
What is this medic doing?
This is part of the next attack wave.
best.
This is common.
Okay. Well, that's a good attack.
Yep. My drone's blind because she has an AI that will blind eggs.
Of course. I think it is kind of cool that she can use the optical flare ability on an egg, and then the unit that hatches out of it becomes blinded.
Where's my overlords? Oh, they're so slow. There's a Dark Templar chasing me.
Grant, did you know that the introduction of the medic to the Terran forces increased the Terran Marines' lifetime expectancy on the battlefield to over 9 seconds?
Wow, that's almost a full stim pack. That's incredible.
It really is.
There we go. Ace has Overlord speed. He can actually see the cloaked units now, which means he can start attacking Artanis' forces, the blue Protoss.
I'm sure he won't be important in the future.
No.
Ugh.
Actually, it's really good that Kerrigan leaves him alive at the end of this mission.
It is. She would have died in Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, it'd have
just gotten...
StarCraft would have a very different ending.
Which is a consequence of her leaving Zeratul alive. Plot point Zeratul. Favorite plot point.
Kerrigan just leaves everybody alive. She's kind of lazy.
Too bad Admiral Dugal wasn't important enough to leave alive for StarCraft 2.
That is true. But Stukov was. Even
Yeah.
though he was supposed to be dead.
Stukov was too cool to leave dead, let's be honest.
That is true.
Alright.
So Ace is going to get, you know, a little bit attacked from every single side. He's going to have a million Hydras popping out, and if things get super sketchy at home, he can always use those to clean things up. Hopefully Mix is not too rude.
For the most part, we're just going to try and clean it up with units that are spawning back home and not have to send any of our main army back to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. That tank is being annoying, but it doesn't seem to be sieging up, so it's not going to cause too... Oh, that's annoying.
That's trolly.
Wow. So that's an extra 200 HP.
Nope. This might be the single hardest area to path in the entire game. You have to go around a corner and down a ramp at the same time. If there were siege tanks here, this would be an unbreakable defensive fortification.
Thank goodness they're just scouts.
2 carriers. And an Archon.
Oh, you're fine.
Archons do a lot because of the splash, but yeah, the carriers aren't too threatening.
March, y'all, march!
I mean, the Protoss have to give up some sort of resistance, otherwise they'd be too easy, so they get that at least.
Yeah, I don't think there's any Reavers in this mission, so making these big clumped up attacks is a lot more feasible than it is in some of the previous missions, where a little bit too much clumping can have you losing huge amounts of army to AoE. We saw a High Templar, but they don't have Psystorm at this point in the mission. Another consequence of why another reason why we attacked him first.
So the way that Ace wins on this mission is he has to kill every single production structure, if I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so things like pylons or even enemy units don't have to be killed. It's just things that can make units. Once of those are dead for one of the factions, they will surrender, and then Ace can move on to another group. However, in reality, it just means you can skip a couple of things and you still have to fight almost everything.
It does mean that we actually have to research drop, I believe, because of the high ground command centers.
Yes. Again. That's how Zerglings only ended, with Grant very frustrated that he has to go research drops again.
I knew you were going to remind me of that, you jerk face. Why has everyone got to bully me with drops? I don't wanna.
Such is the life of a content creator. You put yourself out there at your own expense.
And then I somehow managed to make everybody angry. It's great.
Yeah.
Alright. Ace is crushing through these Protoss, though.
But then they also get mad at you if you stop.
It's true.
Alright,
so the Protoss basically don't have any combat units left.
Yeah, this is just cleanup on Protoss, and then we're going to turn our attention to the White Terran.
I don't like the White Terran. They're hard to push into, but we're going to go for it.
Yeah, they have a really good defensive setup, though I would say probably still not as good of a defensive setup as Red Terran.
Oh, certainly not, but it's...
I think, yeah, in terms
annoying.
of terrain, it's better. They have this abysmal choke point, but they also just don't use as many siege tanks.
Yeah, you have... The White Terran is a lot more air units and Marines for defense, whereas we already kind of mentioned Red Terran is all siege tanks all day.
He likes nukes, too.
I mean, who doesn't, though?
The UED, apparently, those losers.
Dare
So
they?
there's going to be... Ugh.
Yeah, they have a couple tanks, but they don't have a lot of tanks, and they don't produce more tanks, which is the key factor here.
So there's a couple places that Ace has to take out here. To the left, there is a production facility, or a couple of them, and then to the right is the main base, with a very, very tough choke to break into. Ace has a lot of stuff, though. 173 supply of Hydralisks. Remember, in StarCraft 1, Hydralisks are a single supply each, which means he has about 100 of them, and 70 workers. There are a lot of battle cruisers here, though.
Yep, they rebuild those.
Battlecruisers are a lot weaker in StarCraft 1 than StarCraft 2, mostly in the form of their attack. They have a single high-damage laser, which is great DPS, to be sure, but there goes Artanis, and they don't actually cutscene lock us for the dialogue on this mission, so we don't have to do dialogue skips.
Thank goodness. That would ruin the flow of this mission so much.
So what Ace is going up right there is the main choke point into the UED base, but because he was fighting in that outpost area before, the UED pulled a lot of their forces away from the choke point to help the defense, and it's a lot easier to just walk up into the main now.
Yeah, and like most of the bases in StarCraft, once you get past the outer defenses, the inside tends to crack really easily. And that's where we're at right now, just doing base cleanup for Admiral de Gaulle.
Yeah, the reason for that is because the StarCraft 1 AI responds with threats as much as they can in equal to the threat that you present to them. So if you only show a couple units, they're only going to respond with a couple units, and that keeps them from, you know, pulling their entire army for a small little attack. But when you attack with everything, all of a sudden they're going to go, oh my goodness, we have to defend with everything. And once you get past that, it's all, you're Gucci.
Yeah, this is not StarCraft 2, where they put bases on the map that they tell you don't attack. If there's a base on the map, you can attack it.
Yep, alright, we're going to go try and break Minksky Boy, and it's going to go terribly.
Terribly well.
That's what the second attack wave is for.
It is.
So that's where the fact that we have a bunch of extra hatcheries really actually does come into play. We're currently at the supply cap, and as soon as we start losing large amounts of units, we can start building large amounts of units right back.
So sooner or later, the UED should be surrendering, and it'll be all Minsk. Ace is having a little bit of a hard time getting into that choke point because this is Diagonal Bridge, which we talked about before, the bane of all StarCraft players, and a lot of tanks around here with bunkers defending them. He has to make sure these overlords stay alive so that he doesn't get cheesed out by ghosts, and besides that, he just has to throw Hydras at the problem.
Yeah, what a problem it is. Where's Dugall? Dugall's not surrendering because he put a building there.
You can see that Ace, he lost 50 Hydras in that initial bust. He was able to rebuild a huge amount of them, but his supply is starting to slip because of how tough the enemy is to break there. Now they're sending things to the flank as well, taking his rally. Minsk is just a menace to society. He's very tough to bust, which is why he's the final base in the final mission.
It's a good thing that we're going to kill him at the end of this mission, right?
Oh, look at those tanks! There's so many!
Oh my god!
Ace
Sick
is...
drop strat, though. He actually gets on top of them because, as mentioned, they have that minimum attack range, and unsieged tanks are very poor combatants, so really cool strat coming out there to bust 5 tanks with only 8 Hydras.
Was that intentional, or was that your high ground killing force that you dynamically
No, it's intention.
that with?
That is
Okay,
intentional.
that's cool.
That's something I picked
trick.
up off Illusion.
Very smart.
Illusion is another former top runner at this game. I don't think he's actually put up a run in quite some time, but his strats at this point are pretty outdated, but he just has incredible army control, and he just produces units like a boss.
Yeah, Illusion is the closest person to a pro player speedrunner that we have, but he's only played the original campaign and Omega, but his time on Omega is something I would consider legendary.
Yeah, StarCraft 1 is such a skill-intensive game, which is why it has had a competitive professional scene for 20 years now. And Yeah, when you have players that just sit down and play this for 20 years straight, they are incredible. It is night and day. Like, Ace is good, and yet he cannot hold a candle to someone like Jaedong. If he decides to sit down and try to play this mission, it would be a whole other world.
Alright, we're approaching time here, so I'm going to clean up the last buildings here. The only thing I have left are these high ground command centers, which are annoying.
Yeah, unfortunately, command centers are considered production structures, even though they don't make combat units. They still can make SCVs, thus they have to be eliminated. And
Yeah,
they
but
are by
once-
far and away the most durable of all the production structures.
Yeah, but once these 3 go down, that should be time.
Yep.
I'm just going to take a couple of the extra hydras that we have laying around, throw them into overlords, just to increase the kill speed a little bit.
Is that the last guy? There we go.
Time. 1:39:58.
That was good.
Just sliding under the 140 mark, looking good. Alrighty. That is the entirety of the StarCraft Brood War campaign played in 2 seconds under 100 minutes. Thank you, Grant and Ectar, for aiding my very tired brain for that. And, yeah, any closing words?
You're the good video gamer. You're so strong.
Oh, I thank you. All right. Well, thanks for considering the submission, and goodbye.